I think I would have remained a person that was hesitant, that took the safe route, that assumed I couldn't do whatever the big thing was. Would I have still had a happy life? Probably. But I wouldn't have gotten to experience the joy of pushing past that point. It changed something big in my character. Clutter's my thing, clutter's my passion, and I define clutter as anything that distracts you from your priorities. And the practical thing, and I share this at every presentation, I'm going to show you a box. This is a practice that takes almost no time. And so every time either my husband or I see something in our loft that is not adding value to our life, we drop it in there.
I'm Art Blanchford, and this is Life in Transition.
Welcome back to the Life in Transition podcast. I'm very excited today to have with us Angie Hyche, who is an author, speaker, retired professional organizer who is now passionate about helping people to remove the clutter from their lives so that they can focus on what's most important. So very big welcome to the Life in Transition podcast, Angie.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I think anything that helps us to be able to focus on what's most important is a worthwhile transition.
Absolutely.
So thank you for bringing your expertise in this area. As I always start out with this podcast, Angie, what would you consider to be a very significant or meaningful transition in your own life?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of transition, as we all have. I was thinking about this guesting, and I love your title. And I was thinking, if you changed one letter and made it "Life is Transition," it would still be true, because we're constantly in transition. But specifically, I would say the biggest, most meaningful transition in my life was in 2016 when I went from a part-time employee in the school system to starting my own business as a professional organizer. It was a huge leap and something I never would have envisioned myself doing. And now I can't imagine having done anything else.
Wow. So what gave you the inspiration and the courage to make that leap?
So I had done careers in medicine. I was a PA, pediatric physician assistant.
Mm-hmm.
I taught high school for a short period of time. I had assisted in elementary school, but I had always really loved the process of organizing to the point of almost obsession. When I was was home with my girls full time and doing volunteer work, one of the places I volunteered was a community theater. All four of us had started doing some acting as a hobby. Mm-hmm. And the theater had...
For your husband and your girls?
Yes.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
So the theater had a big room with 8 closets where they stored props, costume pieces, things for the set. And every time I did a show at that particular theater, I just was... the clutter in that room just drove me crazy. And there was a part-time employee of the theater who I found out, oh yeah, Sharon, you should talk to Sharon. Sharon really wants to get that room in order. And so the two of us set about to go through everything the theater owned, including some stuff that was being stored. They were paying for storage, not even knowing what they had. So the two of us spent weeks going through every single item, getting rid of a lot, putting things in bins and labeling and all that. And in the midst of that big mess, I said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I could literally do this every day. I had no idea I loved it so much until I just dove right into it. So I started doing some research. I found NAPO, which is National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. Found out, oh, hey, professional organizing is something people do for a living. That was news to me.
Yes, me too.
But I also quickly found out that if this was something I wanted to do, it wasn't something I just, call, get an interview and get a job. I would have to start my own business. There was only one other organizer in the area And so that right there just instantly was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to be doing that because I couldn't start a business. There's no way I could start a business. My girls were still young. I wasn't ready to do something significant like that. So for years, I just kind of sat with that idea in the back of my mind. Maybe someday I'll get to the point where I feel ready for that. And then decided I was ready to start work of some sort, but wasn't ready for that. I'd been out of medicine for so long that seemed like, oh man, I would have to do so much study. And so I did something safe. I decided to be an instructional assistant in an elementary school. And that was okay. I liked school. I liked kids. I was good at it, but I couldn't let this other thing, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And my husband and I do a lot of hiking and biking, and on the trails, we would come back to this topic time and time again. And so over several years, we reached empty nest stage of life.
When was that?
So that would have been our youngest graduated in 2015 in May.
Okay.
So we
hit that milestone last week.
Yeah,
sure.
wow.
Our boomerang oldest moved out last week, and we have 2 in college. So.
Oh, wow. That's pretty exciting. I will have to say, I mean, I kind of felt bad that most of my friends were just in tears for that transition, and we were like, woohoo.
Yeah, no, of course, it's happy, sad, but that kind of sad is a good sad. But for my oldest to be moving out, I'm very excited for him and very excited for us.
Yeah. If it's a good, they're ready, they're doing well. Exactly. Yes, you miss them, but yay for them,
Absolutely.
And yay for you that you get to do more. So, so it was actually almost a year after that before we had this big conversation on a bicycle trail. Because it was time for me to decide, am I going to do another year in the school?
Right.
I'd done 3 at this point. And I had a conversation I just credit all this to the right timing, the right words, being in the right environment. Because my husband said, I know that you are really scared about the prospect of starting a business. And I understand that. But we are not counting on income from you.
Right.
I'm here to help you in any way we can. And this was the one that got me. He said, there are thousands of people less intelligent, driven, and resourceful than you that start businesses all the time. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And you go back to the school system or whatever you want to do. And I really think you're going to regret it if you don't give this a try.
Yeah.
He said, I think you are just so perfect for this. And I don't want you to have regrets down the road. And so, I get chills still talking about it all these years later, because it was on that trail that I finally said, you know what? All those things are right. And I think I just have to do this. So that was the spring of 2016. And I launched ShipShape Solutions in August of 2016. I took some classes with NAPO. I got a mentor. I got some training with a small business agency, free training, because I know how to organize, but how to start a business, that was crazy. That was what kept holding me back. And I remember knocking on the first door in August of 2016, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Petrified and excited. And it was the hardest and most amazing thing. And so it's taken so many twists and turns, but gosh, I'm so glad I did that.
Tell me about that door.
Oh, wow.
What was that first door that you knocked on? Was it metaphorical? Was it literal?
No, it was a literal door. Okay. So I did mostly residential organizing. I did work with some businesses, and but yeah, it was a mother and grandmother. And at the time I was doing free assessment visits. That's what I called it, where I'd come in and say, what are your needs? We'd look around, talk about. And then I also had packages. Like if you buy 10 hours of organizing, you get 10% off, 20 hours, 20% off. So that first door was just to do that assessment,
Okay.
Are we a fit for each other?
Right.
And I remember thinking, like, on the one hand, yes, I know what I'm doing. I've had the training, but it still seemed crazy that somebody would pay me, would trust me with that. And
Right.
that first client, like the first session, and maybe the second went really well. She ended up buying a package. So I went back several times, but it ended in a hilarious and kind of crazy way. But by that point, I'd gotten enough confidence to where that didn't completely wreck me.
Right.
But it was so exciting, terrifying, but also exciting.
So
Something
that's
new.
something that I want to unpack a little bit more, because I think that often in life, things that scare us, we avoid.
Absolutely. And I had
Right.
been doing that for at least probably 5 years.
Right. So you had put it off,
Right.
at least quietly, if not actively avoided it for 5 years.
Yes.
But then you've said twice now that it was so exciting and scary, so scary
Yes.
and exciting. So what did you learn from that, leaning into what it is that scares you? What did you learn?
Oh gosh, so much. I guess the biggest thing that I learned is there is so much satisfaction, sense of accomplishment, victory, joy in pushing past that block, past that thing that makes you go, I can't do this, I can't do this. And then when you push past that and like, doggone it, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And then you come out on the other side like, yes, that was terrifying. It still is a little terrifying. I would say for years, I still had a little bit of that, imposter syndrome thing.
Butterflies in the stomach when you're about to knock on the door or answer the phone.
But, each time it's a little less. And then, especially if I went in with a client, it went really well. And they're like, wow, this is so helpful. And then you drive away like, I actually really helped her.
Right.
We did this transition. I have these before after pictures. Like her life is changed and there was something that I had of value. And so how fantastic that I didn't just hide that after so long. Another big lesson that I learned is there are lots of resources available and that for the most part, people really want to help you. I had, there's it's a Keensport Office of Small Business Development and Entrepreneurship. It's part of Tennessee Small Business Development Center. So, they give free business coaching. I literally was able to walk in and say, I've done some research, but ultimately I want to start an organizing business. I have no clue. I have no clue. I need you to tell me all the things. Do I need licenses? Do I need insurance? Do I need a logo? I need a web. I don't know.
Right.
And, that my coach was able to say, these are all the things you need. And here are some referrals. For this, I would recommend you talk to this person. For this, talk to this person, da-da-da. And then the training with NAPO and all that. So that takes a lot of the overwhelm. Yes, it's crazy scary, but there are people that know how to help me and want to help me.
Right. So there's people around you that could support you with the stuff that you're not an expert at.
Yes.
Or the stuff that you don't like, so that you can focus on what it is that you are an expert at, which is the organizing and what you love, making a difference in people's lives.
Yes.
And so forth. Now, that's really interesting. You talked about on the other side of the fear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. Give us an example of what you felt on the other side of the fear.
I guess maybe the first time that I felt like I was a little on the other side of it was the first time I drove away, thinking, I really made a difference there. That really things changed in that home. And it's exciting when there's a big difference, like the physical difference between what the room or the closet or the whatever, or the papers or whatever it is you're organizing.
Right.
The before, after, those are fantastic and all organizers love them. But it's more a difference in, like, for someone to say, my getting up and getting my family ready for school and work in the morning is so much better. It's a difference in, their day-to-day life is even more exciting. And to know that in some small way, I was the difference.
Right. So by you getting over the fear to lean into your gifts, to lean into what you have to offer to the planet, to society.
Yes.
And then getting to see the fruit of that, or to feel like once you've gone through the fear, to say, wow, this is actually really making a difference.
Right. And then that propels you to, okay, well, I just want to do that more and more.
Right.
And so that is it's the best motivation possible, especially when you know that, especially if you know there are things that about your drive, your skills, your passion, your personality that you haven't gotten to use yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, like, okay, this is an opportunity to use that. And now, of course, this is what I'm doing. Of course, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Right. So I was just looking over there at the book, The Artist's Way, right there.
Yeah.
And I've quoted this several times on this podcast, but that our creativity is God's gift to us.
Absolutely.
What we do with it is our gift to God.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone hasn't felt like they've had a chance to find that gift, hasn't found their creativity, hasn't plugged into what it is that juices them, what would you say? What are the hints? What are the things they should look for? What are the breadcrumbs on the trail toward plugging into your creativity, toward using that creativity to give a gift back to God, if you will?
That's a really good question. It took me a long time to figure that out. I think a big piece of it for me was what really lights me up. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What just makes me, I can't wait to do that again. And it's not like I hadn't been doing anything worthwhile before that. I enjoyed my short career in medicine. I absolutely just thrived being home with my girls, wouldn't trade it for the world. Yeah. But until I had that opportunity to do that one specific volunteer job, I don't know that I ever would have seen how much I enjoyed that. So I guess I'm a big fan of volunteering in general, if that's something that most people can carve out some time for that. And trying like a lot of different things. And then hopefully you find something.
Noticing when something lights you up.
Or what people ask you about or what people notice. Like, wow, it seems like you're really good at blah, blah. Or, people ask you about something. So I would say that's big. Do you know Emily P. Freeman, the Next Right Thing podcast and Next Right Thing book? She has 6 books. Anyway, she talks about her biggest topic is about decision fatigue and how we make decisions. And between her and Gretchen Rubin, I'm also Gretchen Rubin and the Minimalist. Anyway, somebody in one of those camps talked about what you enjoy as a child is often what you enjoy as an adult.
Right. If you go back to 10, 11 years old at the latest,
and think about what did I do? And not that I do remember organizing things in my room and my house, and a lot of organizers do. I also really liked planning. I was the one that was like the neighborhood play group, what are we going to do today? What kind of club are we going to form? And I don't know. I liked taking charge. And also noticing what bugs you, what makes you not happy at other jobs. Because those years as a teaching assistant, I came into that position thinking, I know I'm going to be doing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, but I really think that I can give value to the teachers. Like if they talk about, here's what we're planning, this is the material. Oh, well, I've got some really good ideas for that.
Right.
They didn't want my ideas.
Right.
That was not my role.
Right.
And it's not that there was necessarily anything negative about these particular teachers. They were nice. But I realized, now I think I'm supposed to be a leader. I think I'm not happy in this kind of situation.
Right.
I want more. In any group, I tended to be the one step up. And so noticing what you love and noticing what bugs you, that's another thing too. What you're dissatisfied with. That was a clue that I probably didn't see for a while.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah. And time and prayer too. I mean,
absolutely.
I think God loves when we come to him as his children and say, God, I know, I get tears with this. I know that you created me uniquely.
Yeah.
For something. And some of those things I've already seen. You created me to be the mother to these two girls.
Right.
It was and still is a beautiful thing. But I know that you've made me for more. I'm not satisfied in this position. So what is it, God? Where are you leading me? And then just praying for him to show you, praying for open eyes and open ears. God will always honor those requests, especially if you say, I want to glorify you with it, whatever it is. I'm not sure what it is, but you're going to get the glory, and so show me.
Yeah.
This episode of the Life in Transition podcast is brought to you by Midlife Transition Mastery. If you have reached midlife and you are successful, you have checked all the boxes, you've done everything you thought you should do, and especially pleasing everybody else, doing what you think everyone else needs you to do, but you still feel like something's missing, like you're coming up empty, feeling alone, feeling misguided or lost. Midlife Transition Mastery Explorer community is for you. Here we will build authentic community. We will learn about the 8 steps to mastering midlife transition, and we will learn and execute living life with no regrets in our second half. Please check out the community on lifeintransition.online/MLTM, Midlife Transition Mastery. And I look forward to seeing you around the fire in this community.
Show me the way. How can I serve? How can I be a best service to you and my fellows, as we say in recovery work, right?
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting. And I think all those things are true. Like looking at what doesn't light you up, looking at what does light you up, what other people tell you. And the thing the thing that's rattling around in my brain right now as we're having this conversation, Angie, is it doesn't have to be something that you would think is significant. I mean, someone who's a PA, right, who's a very significant role, right, being an organizer. But that's what lights you up. So to not get stuck in shoulds or ego or anything else, but to just notice like that there are gifts and there's needs all the way across the board. And it's not that some are significant or insignificant or some are worthwhile or not worthwhile. No, if it's your gift, what you do with that creativity, that's a gift to us, is the gift back, whatever that is. And to be open to whatever that is, I think is really, really important. I think about, my transition from corporate to coaching. One, I did mostly coaching in corporate. That's what I did as leadership.
Yeah.
But also I noticed, like you were just saying, and I was just thinking about this for the first time, like, most of my phone calls that I had during the day, most of my visits when I was walking or running or hiking was people asking advice. Right? What do I do in this situation? Or what do I do with this situation? I'm thinking about changing this job. I'm struggling with this in my business. I'm struggling with this with my kids. I'm struggling with this with my spouse. And so that's what I was doing anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a natural extension of what I'm already doing and what already lights me up and how I feel really useful in making a difference and so forth. So,
And I had to deal with a little bit of, I don't know if I would say guilt. A lot of people would say, okay, you were a PA and you did all that training in medicine and you gave that up. Why would you give that up? And I think I would have been fine if I'd continued going in medicine, but a lot of the reason why I did it was lack of confidence in being able to get back up to where I was before, to where I could feel confident. Yeah, I knew I could pass those recertification tests. I can do that, no problem. But would I feel comfortable, a patient coming into my room, I'm going to give excellent care? Because I'm not going to do it if I don't feel 100% confident that I can give good care. And, people say, well, you wasted all that training. No, nothing is ever wasted.
Right.
All the medical training has been invaluable for my little family of 4 and my extended family.
Absolutely.
Nothing is ever wasted. And there's actually some parallels between how the things that I liked about medicine, I really liked what a lot of people would kind of consider boring stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked the slow pace of like, okay, here's the patient, here's what they're telling me, what the parents telling me, here's what I see on exam, here's what, if we get labs, if we get whatever, here's what I see. So now I've got to come up with, this is what I think is going on. And so here are some things we can try, and then we can follow. And it's kind of the same process.
Right.
Here's what the client is telling me. Here's what I see in the home or see in the business, how things are functioning or not. What can we try to make it better? And it's kind of a puzzle, putting together a puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
and I think that the other thing that, most people forget, and it didn't really hammer home in me until I was getting my MBA a little later in life, that sunk cost is never a decision factor, right? It's human nature to have sunk costs, right? To consider sunk cost, but it's already sunk. So it really shouldn't make any difference. I have a very close cousin. I call him my brother cousin because he was raised in our house, exactly the same age. He lives in Chattanooga, so just south of you. He's a Carnegie Mellon trained computer science and computer engineer guy. Did his first career on the West Coast, right? Didn't like it. Blew it up. He's now at UK about to finish his master's in social work.
I love it.
And a lot of people could say the same thing. Well, why did you waste all that amazing education and rah. No, because that was that chapter. And this is this one. Yeah. Right. And he has a beautiful life now. He really does. And it's really, he's leaning into his gifts, right? And his experience and everything. I'm sure everything that he's, learned and went through in that, and offshoring everything to India and all that travel and leading people, and even the tough marriage that he lost in divorce and everything else will come into being a better social worker, better therapist, right?
Absolutely. But God uses all of it.
Exactly.
He can use all. He said he does uses everything for good for those who love him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, so I think that's another thing I would add is to not, consider sunk cost. Of course, if you need to think about, okay, I have responsibility to pay the bills, then how am I going to make money in it? That's fine, but that's not a sunk cost. That's going forward. Like, okay, I need to have a plan that does this, right? But sunk cost is something that we, I hear it a lot in my kids. I hear it a lot in my friends. Oh, I really don't want to go to this concert, but I already bought the ticket, so I guess I should go. Right? No, is it more value for you to go or to get rest? And now, of course, today you can sell them anyway and you can recover your sunk cost. Right. But in general, when we think about life experiences, there is nothing lost. There is nothing wasted. And sunk cost is not a good decision maker for the future. Yeah, for sure.
And then, after a few years of working with clients, my passion kind of changed a little bit. I was still really loving helping people bring order to their lives and their homes and their businesses, but I was seeing the disastrous consequences of physical clutter, then also learning that clutter is not just the stuff. Clutter creeps into our schedule and clutter creeps into our minds, and including my own battles with cramming my schedule full of stuff so I didn't have to think about the deeper life issues, getting stuck scrolling on my phone for hours endlessly because I didn't, for whatever reason. And so God turned my love of, I started doing a blog, I started doing some presentations. It was all just to get clients, but then that became what I loved even more. And so I kind of transitioned to now I'm writing and speaking, and I am still able to, it's been really neat how this worked out. I'm still able to do some organizing projects because we don't need money from my part of things. I just give organizing to nonprofits for free. And so I'm able to help them in their ministries, but yet, through my books and through my presentations and my podcast, still, talk about that passion for clutter and getting rid of clutter. And so it's changed a lot, even within the 9 years total.
But that's the steps, and to follow what lights you up at that time and what's leading you at that time and what scares you. Like I was reading a book by Pema Chodron about go to the places that scare you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
because it changed from I could never start a business to, well, I can write articles for the paper, but I don't think I could ever write a book. Well, why not?
Right.
You know, and I could never start a podcast. Well, why not? And so now in some ways it's kind of fun. Like, okay, what's next?
Right.
What's next?
Right. And I love that you say it's kind of fun. Like that's
It
where
is.
the juice is. That's that edge of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's where life force is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think about it in terms of skiing a lot because I love skiing. And every time I'm, hiking up on the ridge and I'm standing there on the corners, every time it's like, it's scary.
Yeah.
And then when I drop in, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And that's, to have that, to allow ourselves to lean into that fear, knowing that on the other side of it is all these good things.
Yeah. And I kind of realized that whole, like the rush of that adrenaline rush. And in some ways I've been a little bit of a junkie for it before. Like I would get that adrenaline rush when it was like time for the jump ball or the first serve in volleyball. And,
right.
And then when I started doing theater, it was like, okay, lights up, here we go. On the edge of like, I think I know my lines, but I'm getting ready to, it's almost my turn. Do I know?
Right.
I almost liked that edge of, I think I know, but I don't want to rehearse too much because I don't want to lose that edge of, I got to be really thinking, be into the scene. But
be really present.
Yeah, there is something about the edge. Now I'm not about to go bungee jump, but that realizing how fun it is to push yourself past those limits.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there is something about, it's not about being an adrenaline junkie, but there is something about also, is this something I can do or not? Like you really don't know. Like anybody can say they can do something, but until you do it, until you give it your all and either do it or don't do it.
Yeah.
Right. Either way, that's where you find out.
Yeah. And there's joy in even going, I think I might want to do this. And then you have the opportunity and then you say, you know what? I think that's not for me. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
or
totally
you try
okay.
it and you fail. That's also okay.
Yes.
You give it your all and you couldn't manage. I mean, that's also perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Right?
And speaking of failing, I think one of the things that I learned that maybe I didn't do so well is to define what success was going to be for me. We didn't need my money and we had established that. And that was a rare blessing. Not everyone has that opportunity to try a career that you potentially are not going to make much money.
Right.
But because I was active in with NAPO in their email list and their social media, I had friends, I would go to conference, and it was really easy to compare what I was getting for my work versus what other people in other situations. And sometimes, I would see someone post like, oh, well, my schedule's booked for 3 months solid. And I just moved from this figure to this figure. And I'm getting asked to be on these stages. And I've got a team of 10. And all of a sudden what I thought, well, why am I not getting that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this. Like if you could name every possible way to promote my business, I was doing it.
Right.
I'm also in a small town in East Tennessee. And bigger than all of that is the fact that I think God knew what I could and couldn't handle. I would say, yes, I would love to be leading a team of organizers. Yes, I would love to be traveling around the world to speak. Yes, I would. And then when I think about it, would I though? Really?
Right.
Like during times when I was discouraged at my lack of clients or my lack of speaking opportunities, those were the times when my parents started having aging health issues, and I needed to be there for them.
Right.
And so there was beauty in that too. Yes, that may have been what you thought you wanted or thought you deserved, but God knew where you were needed in other ways. And that's beautiful, although it was hard initially.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Um, I'm curious about a comment you said a while back, Angie, about, you would pack your schedule, or you would, I call it doom scrolling, social media scroll, to avoid certain things. What is it that you're avoiding? Because I think everybody does this. So I'm really curious, like, what is it that you were afraid of? What was it that you're avoiding or not wanting to feel or see?
I don't know if that was so much, well, in a lot of ways, I was avoiding God.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more.
Like, I can have a full schedule and be promoting my business and doing all these things, and yet I'm not taking time to spend with God.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong there?
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, I know the right answers if you ask me what my priorities are.
Sure.
Yeah. And you're going to see me at church, and I know the scriptures, but like, am I really living it? Am I really? And I think down deep, I knew that for a large part of that time, the answer was no.
Mm-hmm.
But if I just stay busy, I don't have to think about that. It's a lot easier to, work on the business and keep the laundry and the dishes and the cooking and the cleaning kept up and be active in my community and than it is to say, well, okay, what are you really doing here? What are you really focusing on? What is most important to you?
Right.
I say when I speak, and sometimes when I write, I say, this is all soul searching work. It's really hard.
Yes.
It's really hard to define what's most important and to really put your money where your mouth is, and your time, schedule your time in such a way that it reflects what's most important. All that stuff is hard.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. And I think that's, it's well said. And I think it's, avoiding God, avoiding, the abyss that we are afraid might be there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's easier to make ourselves busy than it is to, what is that quote about? All wars could be avoided if people could just sit quietly with their own company. Right. And with themselves.
Wow.
Because we don't, I was reading in WA and literature on Sunday. I like to take part of my Sabbath laying in the backyard on a sleeping bag. And this time of year, it's beautiful for that. And it talked about, being addicted to activity in order to avoid the quote horrible alone.
Oh, I totally.
Right. This fear that we have that if we allow ourselves to just be quiet and still, that we will, I don't know, disappear, die, freak out, right? Like, so we just make ourselves busy. I speak for myself. I make myself busy in order to avoid the risk of this horrible alone, this loneliness or feeling that I'm afraid I might not recover from. The water that's so dark and so deep that I don't know if there's a bottom or if I can get through it.
And now it's not just a matter of not being active. It's also like, it's very difficult for me to not be constantly listening to a podcast while I'm doing laundry, or it's just, oh man.
It's so easy to have that be on all the time. And I can tell you it's not healthy.
No.
I did an experiment. I think the podcast came out about, I don't know, a month or so ago. It was one of the first solos I've done in a while, besides the year-end ones. Because I did an experiment with zero multitasking for a week.
Yes.
And it was horrible and wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, zero multitasking, like nothing in my ears when I'm running for 2.5 hours by myself.
I'm pretty sure I listened to that one.
Yeah, it blew my mind. And what I recognized, this intense sadness that I felt during that time that I thought was like just withdrawal from the adrenalizing of activity, I think it was the horrible alone that I just read about on Sunday, right? Like, whoa, what is it like? Yeah, and let myself feel that, and to recognize that I am not that. It's just a feeling.
Yeah.
Right? It's not who I am, which is the fear I have about emotions is that if I am that, I can't manage it. It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But if I just recognize that I'm having that, but it was it was so wonderful. But one of the things I noticed coming out of that week was how much better I slept, how much better the food tasted, how much less I ate. I lost like 4 or 5 pounds in 1 week just by being 100% present with what I was eating.
Oh gosh,
Because
I could see that. I could
I'm
see
not
that.
stuffing my face as stuffing my emotions, or while I'm reading the newspaper or watching news. And that's one that I kept. And I haven't kept it faithfully, but it's on my list, right? That I don't do any multitasking while eating at
Wow,
all.
that's really
I can
good.
talk to somebody face to face, but not on the phone, not reading anything, not watching anything, not listening to any podcasts. And I've continued the first 15 minutes of any solo activity I do during the day, no multitasking. So I have 15 minutes of silence while running or in the car or on my bike. Right. And then every time I have some sort of transition like that during my day, that I have 5 minutes, that I just pause 5 minutes, like, because my tendency is like, be productive, fill up every minute,
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's not healthy. And
Yeah.
it's an addiction. For me, it's an addiction, right? The addiction to this busyness. So
Right there with you, and probably way worse than you. There's a book that I was trying to find. My daughter gave me a book for Christmas that I asked for. I'm having trouble finding it. Okay, so a guy who decided to do like a full month away from any screen, and he spent some time with monks. And do you know what book I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, the
it
name
could
of
be
it is
Jay Shetty. The urban monk, but he spent more than a month. It was like 6 months.
But anyway, it's one of these things, like, I asked for that book, and I know it's going to be hard to read, and I haven't read it yet.
Right.
But I so desperately need to do that.
Yeah.
We are just so attuned to being entertained constantly, or even just, oh, what was that? Like just now, what was that book that? And we want instant answers always.
Right.
We could just think. We could just say it doesn't matter. The point is that
and
we're
the same
so
thing
addicted.
With with the phones, with having the whole world and the ability to fill every second in our pocket. I was thinking about that even this morning. I was running to meet a potential coaching client, and I had like 10 minutes till I got there, and I had this thing I wanted to share with my wife. But then I thought, wait a minute, that would be a really great conversation for dinner tonight, for one. And two, I really want to have myself centered and be there for my client, right? And not be starting something else in my mind, which it's not possible. We think we can just switch immediately to some other task. It takes a little time.
Yeah. It
right.
does.
So I'm like, no, I'm just gonna leave it. Or I think about when I'm going to call somebody in the car, is this really the best time for both of us to be really effective? Or is this just me wanting to fill the dead space because I'm bored or afraid to be alone or whatever the case is?
Yeah.
So
you could just actually like look out the window.
Yeah.
And
imagine
think.
that. Yeah, my kids give me a hard time whenever we're driving together. It's like, Dad, you're always looking around. I'm like, well, I like enjoying the scenery. They're like, well, then let us drive. I'm like, okay. But yeah, so this is the other part of clutter that's maybe deeper even than the physical clutter. I think the physical clutter may be a manifestation.
Yes.
Of the mental clutter, the mental noise. Which, if I look around my office, I must have a lot of mental noise because there's a lot of clutter in my office as well. But I do like it when it's not. Right, the times when I really take the time to straighten it up, it's really great. A question for you: if you look back now to that point when you finally had the courage to lean into something that had been calling you for a while, what would you tell yourself then? What would you do differently, or what would you tell yourself at that point? What would you wish your 2016 self knew that you know now, Angie?
I would have told myself to record in some way, whether that's writing, typing, talking about, maybe all of these. What is success going to be like? What is success? Because I think I probably would have said, and maybe I even said this through the years, if I can even help one person, make their life better, or if I could, with my books, with my speaking, if there's just a few people that would say, my life changed for the good, then that will be success. But what I did, I may have said that, but then I started following other organizers who were, like I said, I'm booked for 6 months. I'm making X figures. And like I needed to keep bringing myself back to that. No, that's not why I did this. I just wanted to help a few people.
Right.
Maybe reminding myself of that and reminding myself to run my own race.
Yeah. Comparison is a thief of all joy.
Oh, so
Right.
much. I was at a conference at my church, and the writer of The Shack, whose name is escaping me.
Yeah.
Great guy, incredible story.
What an amazing story. Yeah, holy cow.
The story of why he even wrote that book. He never intended it to be published. It was just going to be for his children. And gosh, long story. He was very, very vulnerable and honest about his life. But something that he said that I keep coming back to over and over. He said, when we learn to live without expectations, everything becomes a gift.
Right. Right.
And it's similar to the comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have to keep bringing myself back to that.
Yeah.
What is it? It's a gift that I had even one person, much less several, that said, you really helped me. It's a gift that I have even one review, much less several, that say, your book changed the way I thought about things, or your podcast. And ultimately, if someone is able to say, because of the way you helped me, because of what you wrote, what you spoke, what you did in my house, I'm able to my relationship with God is deeper. I'm able to see the ways he's blessed me. I can't ask for more than that.
Right.
So I think I wish I had told myself, keep going back to what you said you wanted, because you're going to stray away from it and you're going to get unhappy. And
so define success early on in the beginning. What means success for you? And a couple of pointers along the way. By the way, happiness or success is the result divided by the expectation, right?
Yeah.
So if you run the expectation to near zero, then you run your happiness or success to near infinite, right?
Yeah.
So that's really good advice, and something that's resonating with me right now as I'm, I've had a lot of definitions of success, but very different than what they were in my first career. And to come back to that and be clear about that, I think it's really good and really useful.
It's probably something, to somehow revisit in some way. And I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but I think I probably need to keep coming back to that a different, in some regular fashion.
This episode of the Life in Transition podcast is brought to you by Transition Mastery Coaching. If you have made it to midlife and you're successful and you are going through transitions in your life, in your business, in your career, or in your organization, and you are looking to master those transitions, to make the most of them, to accelerate into the next phase of your organization or your life. If you're facing, challenges in your business, challenges in your relationship, challenges in your health, and you really want to transition those quickly, I'm here to guide you for that. And I look forward to working with you. And you can sign up for either Pinnacle Transition Coaching or Summit. Please go to lifeintransition.online/MLTM and scroll to see the Summit and Pinnacle Coaching, or reach out to me directly on my email, art@artblanchford.com. And I look forward to connecting with you and helping you to accelerate your transitions to achieve what it is that you want to achieve in the second half in your organization and in your life, so you can live your whole life with no regrets.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Where do you think, Angie, that your life would be today if you hadn't made this transition, if you hadn't had the courage to lean into something that scared you?
I think I would have remained a person that was hesitant, that took the safe route, that assumed I couldn't do whatever the big thing was at the time. I think it would have been, would I have still had a happy life? Probably.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't have gotten to experience the joy of pushing past that point. And so I think I would have missed out on other things that maybe I would have had the thought, maybe I could, oh, no,
Right.
So I
So
think
you would still maybe have a good life,
changed
but
something big in my character.
yeah, but you would not have developed into the person
Yeah.
that you are today
Yeah.
from leaning into that fear. Oh, that's great. If you could give one tool to our listeners, whether it's about decluttering their lives or whether it's about going through transition or stepping past their fear or leaning into their fear, something that everyone can do right now, they can hit pause and on this podcast and come back and finish listening after they have done this. What would that tool be? What would that advice be?
I want to give like a general principle, but also tie it to a specific practical action. So when I clutter's my thing, clutter's my passion, and I define clutter as anything that distracts you from your priorities. And that can be a thing, something on your calendar, something you're scrolling on your phone or thinking about, worries, whatever. And so the general principle I would say is evaluate everything in your life is this distracting me? Is this leading me closer to my goals? Is this a distraction or is this helping me? And is this, I love one of the people I follow the most, the minimalist, Joshua Fields Millburn, Ryan Nicodemus, and TK Coleman. When they talk about physical clutter and minimalism, they use one question. I think it's such a good one. Does this add value to my life? And I think we can think about that in terms of our stuff, in terms of our activities, in terms of our thoughts. Are these things adding value to my life or are they distracting me? And the practical thing, and I share this at every presentation, I'm going to show you a box. So when it comes to physical clutter, this is a practice that takes almost no time, but it is extremely valuable.
Okay.
So I have this one box that has no lid. It says donations on it.
Yeah.
So I have it in a very prominent place in our little loft. And so every time either my husband or I see something in our loft that is not adding value to our life, we drop it in there. When it fills up, we donate it. Now, we did a big move and got rid of literally 75% of our belongings,
Wow.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things, but we still fill this thing up probably every month or two. I mean, we are, we are consumers. So like right now, I've got 2 old utensils, a couple of books, a laptop cover, but it's a constant thing. And the reason we don't tend to do stuff like this is because we'll say, like, we'll be in the closet, look at our clothes and go, golly, I need to do a big closet clean out. And I'm all for a big closet clean out. But sometimes that doesn't happen. We need hours and hours. We don't have it. But if I were to say, I'm getting ready in the morning and I see this thing is too tight. This drives me crazy. Just pull it off.
Right.
The hanger, drop it in the box.
Yeah.
Your utensil drawer.
In my closet.
Your utensil drawer. It's like cram full. Why do I have 10 spatulas? Drop a few in the box. It's something you can do as you go.
Right. I like that.
And then it kind of builds that muscle for decluttering. And so then maybe when you have, a few hours on a Saturday, maybe you do a big closet clean out, but it's a small practice that yields big results.
Yeah, I love that. Any advice on how to do that in our mental space or our calendar space?
Oh, wow. In the mental space, I think in 2025, our phones are not the only source of mental clutter, but they are a huge one.
Yes.
And our phones, if we want that information, we can find out more than we ever wanted to know about how much time we spend on them.
Yeah.
And part of my getting off my phone addiction, which my family begged me for years to get off my phone. I am not proud of that fact, but I'd have to delete apps every once in a while. Like I do put stuff on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn about my work, but I try to get on there as little as possible, but it starts creeping in again. I just had to delete Instagram from my phone because I would find myself. So, okay, here's a good question. Ask the people closest to you. Ask at least one person. This is a challenge.
Okay.
Am I on my phone too much? Do you find that you're trying to have a conversation with me or whatever, and I'm not paying attention because I'm on my phone, or I'm just elsewhere in my mind? Be willing to hear that hard answer.
Right.
So
That's
I would
great.
ask about that. As far as the schedule clutter, oh, wow. I would say take a really hard, honest look at everything on your calendar and on your to-do list. Is this adding value to my life? Is this adding value to my life? I mean, there are some things that we have to do that, I mean, I hate cleaning toilets, but it is adding value to my life because I want a clean environment. But there are some things that we do out of guilt. We don't want to let someone down. We've been on this committee for 25 years.
Right.
Maybe the committee needs to die, honestly. I mean,
yeah.
Sometimes they could be like all the things that are on there, they're all really good things, but there's just too many.
Yeah.
There's just too many.
And I think just reflecting on my personal situation in that, like there's boards that I'm on, the community stuff, that I don't even attend anymore because it maybe doesn't add value to my life.
Yeah.
It did for a while. It doesn't now. But I don't have the courage to remove myself. So it's still taking up it's still mental clutter.
Yeah.
It's still spiritual clutter.
It's hard. There's some guilt there. I should be on this. I should be.
And there's some ego for me as well. Like, oh, I'm on this board or I'm on that board. I can tell my friends or whatever, no, they have the courage to say, if I'm not really an active member, then remove myself.
Yeah.
All right. And
absolutely.
It served me for a time, but doesn't mean it does today.
Yeah. And so many of the things that we're doing that are good things, I mean, they're good things, but like when my father started going through a big health crisis, I was so glad that I was able to help him. And if our lives are so cluttered that when someone needs us, we're not available, there's something wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love it. There's a couple of things that come to mind. I had this sticker on my computer for a long time that said there's more to life than increasing its speed. And I'm not taking things out. I'm adding space.
Yeah.
Right. Because I noticed Sunday night, Mondays, I try to take a Sabbath every Sunday, Saturday night to Sunday night dinner.
I'm not good at that. I love your example.
Yeah. Well, I said I try to. I do probably a third of the time or half the time, like complete. And what I've noticed is if I don't have anything on my to-do list, but still stay in the mind spin about that I should be doing something on to-do list, Sundays and Mondays the carryover, like the hangover. I feel awful emotionally.
Yeah.
This Sunday, while I was still fairly busy, but it was good stuff, hiking with a friend and then church and then came home. Yeah. But instead of going for a long bike ride, I lay in the backyard and read and meditated and talked to my daughter on the phone and just chilled. And because I actually let myself go, like one of the patterns I found a lot is when I'm tired, I don't want to stop. And even if I give myself permission to, I still have a really hard time to just slow down and stop or take a nap. And finally I took a nap and then I read and then it somehow shifted where I slept so well Sunday night. And then Monday was a very different experience than my normal Mondays because I actually gave myself permission to, I've been giving myself the space, but not the permission to experience Sabbath, to experience rest, to just let go. And even when I was falling asleep talking to my daughter on the phone at whatever it was, 4:00 in the afternoon, my time, 10 for her in Europe. And even so, as soon as I hung up and said, okay, now I'm going to lay here, my mind started going crazy. No, you should do this. You should do that. You should, and I have to I was like, no, I'm just going to not do anything for a while. And then 35 minutes later, I woke up. I don't know when I went to sleep. Yeah. Right. But by actually giving myself that permission to declutter mentally, it's a much better start to the week. And I think that's what the Sabbath is for, is giving ourselves that space. But it's not enough to sort of, you can't do it unless you give yourself the physical and schedule space, but you have to give yourself the mental and spiritual space as well.
Absolutely. And, who would have known? God knew. He made us. He knows we need it. We need it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, good stuff. Last question, Angie. Where can people connect with you if they want to find out more about your books or your writings, your speaking, or the advice you're giving now, that living this purpose to help people focus on what matters most? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah. So you can find my website is angiehyche.com, and Hyche is Hyche. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
Okay.
And I love to talk about clutter and organizing challenges. So people can feel free to email me, angela.hyche@gmail.com. I love connecting with people and love to hear from any listeners and viewers.
Awesome. Thank you, Angie. We'll put all that in the show notes as well, so that people will have a link over there. I really appreciate your transparency today. I really appreciate your vulnerability.
Thank you.
And your wisdom, and I appreciate and applaud your courage to lean into something that was talking to you for a long time and scared you, and wasn't something big and significant and egotistical in the world's eyes, and yet you did it anyway and made really a gift for others and yourself.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I can't wait to hear what action you are taking. Connect with me on LinkedIn or our website, lifeintransition.online, and let me know. Let a friend know too. It could be a huge encouragement to them and keep you on the track. Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and it would mean a lot to me if you left a review and shared this episode with a friend. If you want to learn more about me and what I do when I'm not podcasting, please visit me at artblanchford.com. Thank you for listening. Together, let's make the most of life in transition.